All right, call to order our Board of Selectmen special meeting for Monday, March 18th at 4 p.m. Thank you for everybody who's here today. We have no comment on agenda, which is okay. So we can go right to our number 2, which is Silver Petrocelli and Associates presentation of the Swift House Needs Assessment. Tim, if you want to take it from there, and George is on as well. David, sorry. David. Or how will we do that? Harry comes on. Okay.
Sure. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Tim Tack with Silver Petrocelli, project designer on the Swift House. I believe all of you were issued the needs assessment report that was done and sent out last week, I believe.
Could I make one small correction to that, Tim? I'm on the task force and also the curator of the Kent Historical Society. And just in your very beginning, architectural general information about the Swift House, it's not on the National Register.
Okay.
That you're sort of conflating it with Seven Hearths, which belongs to the Historical Society and is in the Flanders District. So
Okay.
it's two separate buildings. So that I just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you. Yeah.
On page 3.
I'll correct that. Okay. What I wanted to do with you guys is share my screen and kind of work back and show you guys the plans that I have proposed. And from there, we can look at the conditions assessment and review all the items that we're looking to address with Swift House. So let me just share my screen with you guys.
Hi, everyone. I'm David Stein, principal with Silver Petrocelli, working with Tim on the project. And as he begins to get that report up, I'll give everyone an overview of sort of the condition of and our approach at starting this project and what we look for as we begin to evaluate the conditions of buildings of this type and era, and formulate it in a way that we've done for previous municipalities and other not-for-profits that we've done over the many years that we've been doing this. We are a 55-person architectural engineering and interior design firm. Our work is primarily in Connecticut, and it's within the sort of the municipal marketplace that deals with municipalities and not-for-profits of buildings of this type, especially historical buildings or buildings that have sort of that historical notion with it. So our architects and engineers have been in the building and have gathered as much documentation as they can that would exist that give us at least an historic data of the chronology of the building and how that was potentially built. And then just through our investigation of walking through the building and compiling a report and outlining it in the way that you have. The challenge with buildings like this, structures like this, and going through what is being anticipated as an adaptive reuse is that we get to a point in our that the building code begins to sort of step in and look at the amount of work that you need to embark on to renovate or restore the building. And we're sort of bridging, have our feet sort of on 2 rails here. One is a full renovation or a partial renovation of certain areas, the other one being preservation of a building, which is more from the historical perspective of trying to keep the integrity of that or initial building or the initial buildings as this has been constructed over the years, as it's additive, as we could see from the documentation and just the different construction types. So what we've included, and just sort of fast forward to all of that, is to be able to give you the flexibility of not only improving the building systems and infrastructure, we also need to maintain, and because it would be used for the public, for ADA accessibility, right? So doing that, how do you balance between those sort of utilitarian code requirements and the historical features of your building and maintaining that? So tried to strike a balance between that. We also tried to strike a balance in realizing that there's certain things that can remain, whether we're just patching in siding, but potentially keeping the roofing intact, but all new mechanical systems that would go into the building. So to give you a framework of ways that, to what level of investment would you make within the building to meet the level of the building code and so forth. So I see a few people have joined, so I may have started too early, so I apologize if we need to reverse back. I obviously will do so, because I think there's others that are here, so I may have jumped in too early.
Thank you, David. I think the primaries for the presentation are here today, so we did get the chance to hear your introduction here and your background.
Thanks. I
Appreciate it.
didn't need the jump start, but I know that Tim was starting to do so. So I know with this, with the Zoom format, and I think if everyone's had an opportunity to at least glance over our report, again, it was, we look at this in a pragmatic way of balancing, the restoration of a building like this with giving you the flexibility of, moving forward with a building that could adapt to different uses. Because the building you want to contemplate whether you're using this that falls under a business occupancy that our building code has. Is there potentially used for assembly space? Meaning assembly, there'd be a larger group of people there. So with that, we have to, knowing that there may be a variety of different uses over its next lifespan, we don't want to be short-sighted and not include some of the improvements that would be needed. So with that, just within the report, you're seeing that the overall structure of the building, starting from its foundation upward, there is some work that needs to be done. Okay, there's going to need to be some structural reinforcing that's done to the floor to allow for that floor loading to take place. There's going to need to be work to the exterior envelope, to the exterior siding, to improve the siding. And then we also want to look at improving the overall insulation value of the building envelope. That is a key component to be able to sort of to keep the longevity of the building, is a strong building envelope. And that's going to dovetail into the replacement of the mechanical systems. The mechanical systems are sort of past their useful life. And there are better strategies that we could use today that are extremely energy efficient, and they can be zone controlled. Those could also be done as items that are used with non-fossil fuels or very, high efficiency boiler systems or so forth, that we could easily adapt into that space. So, we don't want to over design something that requires us to run large amount of ductwork through that space, which is going to reduce usable square footage. So there's definitely strategies of a brand new mechanical system along with new electrical system, lighting, and so forth on the interior. As I mentioned, we are going to need to look at ADA accessibility from your sidewalk or from any parking improvements to the front of the building and throughout. So that's going to be needed, which means we need to sort of open up doorways make sure we have proper handles on the doors. So all of that needs to be retrofitted to allow for full accessibility. And this goes beyond just accessibility for people in wheelchairs. It could be people that have visual issues or so forth. So we want to be mindful of improving that in any of the retrofit that takes place. That includes the full restoration of the bathrooms. And we did look at a potential plumbing count of what it would be through a variety of uses, and we've recommended the installation of 2 accessible bathrooms. That also includes stairway modifications. So we would widen the stair to provide the proper rise and run and construction of the stairwell. And then the upper attic space, we would insulate and do whatever we can to just go beyond code, because I think that is money that's going to be well spent on the, longevity of the building if we could super insulate the building. There were some items that you saw within the report that we categorized as priority items. And those typically start with items that we see that whether there's some structural things that looks of suspect to us. Because I do want to point out that our review was based on our visual observations. Okay, we didn't do any forensic work of testing or any of that, right? As architects, we're able to sort of see what's there, and that's what our report outlined to you. And what we saw is there were some items that we'd suggest need some further investigation when you move forward. The other items are just things that you just will need to do as a byproduct of any sort of renovation that is there. And then to sort of just conclude in a quick summary, and I'm sure there'll be questions from the group, is that we then tried to put some dollars to this as to what's going to cost if you need to embark on these list of items. And in that, we use today's construction dollars and included some contingency that was built within that, along with some projection of what construction escalation would be. That's a bit of a hedge, just no different than our stock market, to be able to predict what construction costs will be within the year. But there's enough indexes that we work with in the construction industry that tells us what we expect our numbers to be in Connecticut within 2024 and maybe starting in 2025 numbers. So please be mindful of the numbers that you see today are sort of based on what we can predict today. And if this was something that was forecasted 2 years down the line, there would need to be some additional escalation that would have to be projected within that number. We're happy to kind of go through and pull up the report and share it. Not sure what's best with your format, but maybe we'll turn it back over, and if there's questions, myself and Tim could answer those. And then if there's something you'd like us to pull up, floor plans or anything within the report, we could share that on our screen too.
I think, well, yeah, it was a fairly comprehensive report, it seemed, but along with your estimates, cost estimates. Looking at how you did your prioritization, your 1 through 4 prioritization, I thought that was pretty good. I liked that. I think they kind of laid out in a sequential manner what that would be the most important, most necessary for functioning the building. Is there any other aspects of that that's important for us to know as we look at the prioritization and of those areas of replacement repair
Yeah, I would say the one thing to be mindful of a building like this, and I'm sure all of us relate to renovation projects, but once you begin to peel away the layers on structural items, you begin to see how things are, may have been constructed with different techniques than we would do today. So with that, that's sort of the unknown of what's here. Now we did not witness any significant settlement, with the exception of one area that Tim noted, where we did see, but the foundation appeared you know, to be typical of that construction, right? Nothing's perfect, but that is definitely one area that I want to caution on is if you do start opening up these walls, there may be some things that we didn't see. It may not show signs of settlement, but it's somewhat of a Pandora's box that happens with renovations like this. Now, you know, you could begin to sort of chase that if you would want to at this point. I'm not sure that's absolutely necessary. You could embark on that once you really know what your project wants to be, and then that team could do their due diligence at the time. But no, there's really nothing else that comes to mind other than, you know, the notion that you know, there's things that happen in major renovation projects like this to do a full conversion.
David, I have a question about the prioritization. I wonder if you guys are open to any changes in the priorities, because for us, I hope this was conveyed to you guys, that one of our main priorities was to get the building open again. And in order to do that, we've had legal advice that says we must have it ADA accessible. And you guys, for the most part, put the ADA as a secondary priority. So for us, the ADA stuff is the first priority over some of the other stuff. I mean, we are probably going to have to phase this project. I can't imagine we were going to do it. We can't possibly afford to do all of the priority one things that you guys have labeled. So in terms of us being able to get grants and stuff like that, I would like to see the ADA stuff labeled as a first priority, so that could help us get grants.
Yeah, so we're not opposed to, and you know, at times some of this is a bit subjective on where it would land, right? Sometimes you're on either or. The reasoning behind the accessibility is that because you're an existing non-conforming condition at the time, right? It becomes a mandate when we do the renovation. So if your first phase of your project is ADA, then that is the focus on it. I would caution though and say you'd really have to explore what items you're making ADA without doing all the other things that sort of go along with it in those other priorities. We try to break this up in a certain way for you to begin to see the different degrees of work, but that it's not necessarily broken up into a way that I would build phase one, then I would build phase 2, 3, and 4 in that sort of sequential order. Our intent was just to be able to break it up in a way that it's not, this all needs to be done at one time. So you really need to shape what the project wants to be. And if it's in phases, then I would recategorize what those phases would look like. I would sort of change this condition format, or we would create a list of what phase 1 absolutely is, and then what the projected future phases is. Do you understand where I'm coming from?
Yeah, but I think that's an important distinction that you just made there, because we can't afford to do this all at once.
We'd have to get enough grants to do that, and
There's no guarantee on it.
Right.
And there's no guarantee on
that would
that.
take a while, but, you know, we're willing to.
You're gonna have to speak up, Sam.
There are also some things on the list of intended repairs and upgrades that have been done. I did talk to Tim about the roof, and I found the proposal from the people who did the roof work. And in fact, the entire roof was replaced throughout. Description of work: remove existing layers of shingles and soft plywood from roof, entire roof. Install new 1/2-inch exterior plywood on entire roof. Install ice and waterproof membrane on entire roof. Install metal drip edge on edges of roof. Install new architectural shingles with a 50-year warranty, color to be determined. Install new roof boots on roof vent pipes.
a new ridge vent and on both of the main roofs as an option. So I think, you know, we could take a closer look at it. We could ask the building inspector that, you know, he surveyed this during the course of the construction presumably. And I think that might help answer the roof questions. If there's sagging, you know, we also talked about sistering the rafters.
Yeah, I think that's most likely gonna be the most, the sensible way of addressing it is try to work it from within. By doing that, as you know, that's always complicated to work from inside out. So sometimes you do need to work from outside in to try to make that work just to get the product in. But yes, we agree, you know, the next level of detail of whatever that phase one piece would be, you would sort of explore, you know, you explore that and see what's absolutely needed. Or what can be deferred, you know, to the next phase.
We also did a considerable amount of repointing on the stone foundation, which, you know, you could take another look at, but
Yes.
we haven't had any leakage.
That was in 21 or 22?
22, I think. We got the bids in 21, and I think the work was done in 22. Isn't that so, Joyce? Yeah. Both of the chimneys, one of the chimneys was replaced entirely from above, you know, above the roof and down to the floor above, since the fireplaces are not in use. And the other one appeared to be in good condition then, because that was a newer chimney that had been installed at the time the heating system was put in, I think.
So if ADA becomes a priority, you know, those items become sort of secondary on your list in terms of things that, you know, you'll pay attention to in the upcoming years. But if ADA becomes the primary function, then we look at, you know, entry. And that starts from the street and, you know, works your way, you know, in the building. So that, you know, that could be an initial project.
That really needs to be the initial, I mean, you know, the whole RFP that went out was to look at the ADA piece to that, the kitchen, the bathroom, and then the entranceway, and then potentially, you know, the stairway up. That was the our you know, RFP piece to it. And that's, you guys did a fairly, you know, comprehensive look at it, and all these derivatives, obviously, of once you start poking through and you move through things, you laid out what could happen. And so on, but, and part of the parking, you know, your layout of where you had to have parking to be ADA and along with, you know, sidewalk to approach it, because right now it's all gravel and dirt. But, yeah, we need to probably, focus that a little bit more on direct to the ADA aspect of entranceway and then the bathroom downstairs. And yeah, and even though there is one upstairs, we had the potential with that stairs to move to the upstairs. You know, that's not going to be part of any kind of phase one, probably even two necessarily, when we start working on the bottom floor, which is to bring it, if we can bring it back, to bring it back to where it's functional in the municipal aspect of having a meeting room that had to be limited to by, you know, certain numbers because of the bathroom. I mean, there are all these things that have to go. I know you guys all know that. I probably beat you to the choir here, but, you know, that would have to be the first look. And that's really what we need to scope, so that we're taking the appropriate bite of this elephant and not trying to eat it all with a spoon.
I have two ADA questions that I wanted to ask you about.
Yes,
What brings about the requirement for two ADA compliant bathrooms? And we had been talking about one. We know that if capacity for an event, for example, is greater than X number of people in terms of fire code and building code, that we need to have a second bathroom, but we weren't told that there was a second bathroom.
Sorry.
yeah, sure. So it's a result of, it's a result of the plumbing count. So as you said, your occupancy for that use dictates that we would need two restrooms. And because the building code notes that for those spaces you would need, it's gender specific, that then you would have one male, one female. If this was just a simple business occupancy for the entire floor, so it's how we designate it. If this was a simple business occupancy, you would be under the requirement and you could just essentially have one unisex restaurant.
What is the count? What would the count be that requires gender specific?
Well, it's our assembly piece of it, knowing that you'd be using this for meetings. So it's typically a requirement, even though you may not have, 50 people, that usually is the driver of that. So, we could share with you the math calculations of that. What it also does, it will also help you with future second floor, because you could make the argument that you can make the position that you have a secondary item and you don't need to create accessibility on the second floor.
So David, if we said we would have no more than 49 people in the main room of the first floor, then we would not have to consider it assembly?
Yeah, I could look at the numbers and tell you what that threshold would be. And if we wanted to try to back into that single restroom, we'll back into the math and show you how that's categorized.
Well, we had wondered if it might be possible to have a restroom that's ADA compliant on the first floor and a secondary restroom where there is plumbing already at the top of the stairs on the second floor.
So it again depends on if we are an assembly space, then we need to have both male and female on that same level. We can't distribute it, even though there's a handicap accessible on one level. Now, there's ways that you can seek a code modification for that. So there are pathways to do it. You need to get an exception from the state building official, and your hardship essentially is the age of the building, and it's technically infeasible to be able to create two on one floor, and we would have another. So there's pathways there. But when you look at the building code and you call assembly, you're really intended to have both male and female on that same level.
The other question that I had was, I'm confused about classifications. At one point in the report, it talked about commercial, the building is commercial. And then there were other classifications, assembly you've mentioned, and I can't remember what the third one was.
Well, the site classifications, commercial, and then the assembly and business is talks about the building use.
And that's, so one is defined by zoning in its regulation. So commercial would be defined purely through zoning. That term is applicable to. And
Is
then
that local zoning or state?
local zoning. Yeah, you're in a municipal district, so in your central business district, right? So that sort of defines that. In terms of assembly and business, that's related to the building code. The building code has a use classification, E for educational, for example, B for business, and then A for different types of assembly, or R, for example, if it was residential.
David, is there not also a different sort of use based on the ADA in terms of municipalities, a specific use? Or
No, it falls, basically, other than residential, which the residential code does not have an accessibility requirement for single family homes. So that's the only exception. Other than that, there's no other exemptions, right? It's not into other categories. This is whether it's business or assembly for a municipal building or a building for profit, it would still, ADA still has the same provisions.
Glenn, did you have any questions at all? You're getting a chance to look at the report yet, right?
Oh, yes, I've looked at it. Thank you. Thank you, Marty. Yeah, so Tim and David, I think a lot of my concerns have been addressed already. we were definitely looking at ADA compliance first. And I too, like Lynn, was a little concerned about the ranking, with certainly with the existing siding and the windows. Those are two of probably the bigger items on there at $110,000. And we as a Swift House task force, we were at the house the other day. We took a video and we made note of all of that. And I was just wondering if that needed to be done before ADA. Did that needed to be, was that immediate? Is the house in imminent danger? And I questioned that. But one thing that I found interesting was the electrical systems. So I figured that you would find a few items that we had missed or hadn't talked about much, and we did not. I don't remember talking about electrical systems very much. So of course we want to be ADA compliant. Of course we want to get people in the building as quickly as possible if we can, but we also want to do it safely. And I saw the 3 ones there with the electrical systems. It needs some exit signs. It may need a new electrical panel. We want the building to be safe electrically, and it seems it hasn't really, work on that hasn't really been done in a while. But I was also happy to see that didn't cost that much. I mean, maybe $30,000 for those three number 1 priorities for electrical systems. So as I looked through the report, I just made a note that the ADA lines seem to tally about $100,000, give or take. And things like electrical, and I think maybe there was a joist. I think there was a joist issue with one of the floors that could seem important as well. But I was looking at like we've talked about, like what are the absolute priorities to get people in there safely, and all of this entire tally is 1.2 million, but it seems to be about $130,000 to $150,000 of immediate work to be able to use it safely with under the current rules. So I don't know if that's actually the case, but that seemed to be the case of my reading of this.
Yeah, I wouldn't parse, I'd caution on parsing out the individual pieces and looking at and saying that's its in totality. We would have to explore what that initial scope would be if it was ADA, which would be addressed at entry on into the restrooms and the other ancillary things of door opening and so forth. We could break that out. The question is then, what else do you then do? Now, there's some items that structurally we'll need to do, right? But we don't have to replace the windows. Okay, we don't have to replace the siding, right? Still can make it ADA accessible. We would suggest we upgrade the electrical because now we're changing the occupancy, which means the code triggers us to have life safety improvements, which are exit signs and such. The question of the heating infrastructure, do we work with what we have, or how far do we go with upgrading that? So I think there's further investigation to kind of shape that before you just hone in on a particular number or parse out the dollar value. I'd rather come back to the group with a ADA focused initial proposal and then talk about what that means. But right now we approached it from a different lens. We created these priorities mainly just based on infrastructure improvements. I hear you're saying we want to focus in on the ADA as doing our first piece. You now see it in its totality at what we showed. Now, if you're asking us to pull that apart, we can do that and come back with a presentation that gives you more of a range of what that would cost and look like.
I think that's where we're headed to, David, for sure. And part of that, we talk HVAC and you talk, with our climate changing, atmosphere, both the heating in the wintertime and then the AC, to use it fully, 24 or 12 months of the year, we have to consider that because we do have an aging population. There are folks here that, I'm one of them, that finds air conditioning a boon to be able to function and be able to use aspects of my life, and I'm sure most people would feel the same way. So those are some of the things, but yeah, prioritizing for the ADA and then those aspects of habitability and functionality. I think we've gone over some of the aspects of what we wanted to do. I know we did with Tim and sent him some stuff. I know Zan sent some stuff. We have as a board looked at some priorities, some use priorities, I would say, for building, for office use, gatherings, things like that, stuff that kind of predated us closing down over COVID. And I know that March had some of those items as well. So if you could break that out and look at some of those functionality to that, and then give us your expert opinion on what needs to be to look at, and then what, would be if you can, the phasing in of those, first 2, 3, 4 steps, whatever it is.
Okay. Yeah, we'd be happy to do that.
Great.
Just as a point of information, what we're proposing is not a change of use for the building. I mean, most of what was on the list of things that I sent to Tim and that both the task force and the Board of Selectmen have gone over, are uses that have been in effect since the town took over ownership of the building in the 1970s. So I don't know if that makes it easier to phase things in. We were also informed at one point, and I'd like your expert opinion on this, that we should put together the list of requirements for ADA compliance, but that the 2 most important things are access and restroom. And that other things, if we need to widen doorways in areas that aren't main use for public use, for example, that could come later when there's more interior work proposed for the building. Is that the case, or were we misinformed?
Well,
As long as there's a plan.
so there isn't there. We would have to look to see. We'd have to explore it's really the accessible routes to get in and navigate through the building. So when you said you are correct, the 2 points in terms of access, we will then need to explore to what degree of access on that first floor and what work is involved in providing free access on that first floor. So I think you're fairly close there. In terms of the use already, it's defined by what your last building permit would have been pulled and designated as. So right now, unless there's something you could find from your building official that shows that the last building permit that was pulled defined that as an assembly, even though it may have been used that way, we would look at this. We would then explore it from a different viewpoint.
Yeah, it hasn't been identified or as assembly, but business.
Yeah, and that's our understanding, is that it's
It's
been,
identified as business, it's never been used for business.
Well, chamber of commerce.
It's like they're explaining, they're talking building code.
Yeah.
So,
so for example, as a business, if it was Chamber of Commerce, right, you would have an office and then you have a conference room, right? That conference room is ancillary to the primary function of a business. So, at times you see older homes are converted to law offices or doctor's offices or things like that. So if it was a doctor's office, then it goes to medical, and that's the primary use. If it was a law office or an architect's office, then it's a business. And if there's a meeting room, then that would be assembly. Now, for example, the room that you are all in right now is an assembly room. It should be defined as assembly. Now, if that's the primary function, then we would define it that way. So it's really from the building code perspective, and we could talk with the building official on it, but that is the designation of change of use. It's the true use that was defined as part of the building permit.
can I ask, were you guys given the ADA checklist that the town developed? Because that's been done in recent years. Were you provided with that? Okay, good.
Okay.
I've got I've got a question for David and Tim. So we've been in contact with the State Historic Preservation Office, Marina Wisniewski. We were going to meet with her on the 15th of March, but that did not happen. We will probably do so. We are going to do so on Friday, March 29th at 10 a.m. Do you need any information from them? Is there any overlap between that? Our discussions with them. I mean, we want to get the building on the state register, so we're able to apply for some funding, perhaps. So I mean, any thoughts about that situation?
Yeah, so we're very familiar with Marina and, her team at SHPO. So, if you're meeting with them, she'll prepare a report for
Okay.
you typically. So please share that with us. That will give some context to not only what they'll be recommending on the exterior, but they will give some insight to the interior, even though typically the work is, their purview is the exterior of the building. It's not, they don't landmark per se, for lack of a better term, the interior pieces, but they still have comment knowing that. So I would describe to them that your plan is to provide ADA accessibility to that. I think she may give you some commentary on it. So yes, that absolutely would be helpful to have. I don't know the time. Sometimes it takes a few weeks for her to issue a report, so I don't know how they'll cross with your timeline for us. But yes, definitely interested in doing that.
All right. What I can do is reach out to her and say that we've had this meeting, we have your report, and let's proceed as planned with the 29th. And if she can get a report as quickly as possible to you, that would be helpful, I think, with this entire process. And she did mention that she's worked with you before. She's coordinated on various projects. So I was pleased to hear that.
Yeah.
So good. Thank you.
David, what kind of timeline would you need to redo towards the ADA piece that we were describing before?
Yeah, but I think where we sit here now, maybe, 2.5 to 3 weeks max. Yeah. If that's reasonable for you, or if there's something else you're trying us to hit, let us know and we could try to move some things around.
That seems very reasonable to me. I would love it if Tim walked through the proposal for the first floor, particularly the stuff that you have outlined for the entrance and, why you chose that particular entrance.
Sure.
And that would be really helpful, I think.
If you could do that, that'd be
And
great.
bathrooms.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Great. Well, just to orient everyone, this site, this is the existing site plan and has the Swift House in the front facing Maple Street, which is also facing north. There is a Kent Veterans Monument on site. There is an existing dirt gravel driveway and 2 accessory buildings, an existing storage facility, and an existing storage shed. And as Dave was outlining in the beginning, our approach to this site plan was access and accessibility, and really trying to facilitate the need for parking and that program use. So the way it's addressed is you access the parking lot on Swift Lane, you have parking on the side, and really what this is addressing is more of a direct approach to the entry of the building. And that's why I'm putting the ADA ramp here. It's in front of the existing porch, and it's really the primary entrance the way the building is used now. And it just gives us, everyone an opportunity to enter into the same area and have an entry zone to be able to utilize the programmatic space that's branched around as you enter. So here are the floor plans. This is a proposed first floor plan. This is the proposed second floor plan. So as I mentioned, the ADA ramp would be tied to the existing porch, and you would use the existing main entrance. And it would open up to a welcome information center. In the back of house area where these additions to the Swift house are connected to or added on to later on. I'm showing a renovation of the kitchenette and really opening up some of these walls to try to help with how you access and how you navigate through the space to have enough opening. And I'm also proposing adding partition walls so that you can have a flexibility of program space, whether you want a private meeting or open it up for an event. And it's very similar on the main portion of the original Swift house. This is where the original bathroom is, and we just reworked this to be ADA compliant with a drinking fountain and a mop sink. And I'm doing the same thing here, where I'm adding partition wall that has the ability to open up to have a flexibility of programmatic space, whether you want to keep this more confined, depending on how you want to use it, or open it up to create an event space throughout the entire first floor. And the entryway, the main facade of the building is where I'm creating a access to the second floor. I'm enclosing this as a stairwell to the second floor. And I'm identifying this to be rebuilt and be code compliant.
Can you explain that, just for those of us who don't understand the code that well, why that is so important?
Well, currently
The entryway, closing off that entryway and just leaving it go to the stairs?
well, you don't have to close it off, but I mean, I did that to divide up the program. You could keep it open, but as far as rebuilding the stairs, there's code compliance for stair risers and treads and landings and handrails.
I definitely understand it needs to change.
But following up on what Lynn was saying, you know, your entryway to the front door into the second floor.
Yeah.
Where, if you were, okay, just to take an eraser and kind of describe how you would access that second floor stairwell if you didn't come through the first floor front door. How would you do that?
I only have it showing through the first door if the programmatic space is completely separate.
I think it would come through either one of the office space that you.
Right, okay, yeah, you could do that, all right, I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't some load bearing issue or something else at that
No.
point.
No, we'd be able to make it work. It's really just the functionality issue.
Gotcha. Okay, that's what I'm looking for, okay, thank you.
I'm still confused. If you come in the front door, you still have the option of going into either of the rooms on the right or left? Not the way
No,
you
at
said.
the moment we sort of segregated that, but as you're sort of talking, and if you needed that to be the case to go to the upper level, then we would have some access doors on either side of that entryway.
It also helps with circulation.
Yeah, I
If
know.
you want to use
Sure.
all of the space on the ground floor for an event. When the Historical Society had their offices in what you've labeled office space, and there would be an annual event, You can circulate all the way around the ground floor, and it really helped.
But it looks like they can do that from the south side of the stairway.
Yeah, but that's back and forth as opposed
Yeah.
to, yeah.
You could easily wrap around. You could keep this open.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you, kind of get back to the choice of using the east side, porch for your ADA entrance. There was a talk one time of potentially looking at the ADA entrance from the back side,
West side, we talked.
the south side, and southwest side.
No, well, no,
Yeah.
Right here.
this is west, it would be
Yeah.
east.
Well, that's east, that's east
East
now.
and the west, no, the west side.
West, we
West side,
originally
right.
talked about wrapping it around on the west side. you know?
Correct, the
Yeah.
southwest side, yeah, coming in that area there, where the
So-
pointer is right now.
Can you talk to us, Tim, about why you didn't choose to do that proposal?
Accessibility and access to the building,
Yeah.
it related to the approach from the street to the parking to the building. And also like an entry zone where you can kind of branch out and utilize the rest of the program. Hey, if you're coming in here, you're gonna have to create some kind of entry zone, and you're kind of confining the use. Like, you can't really, if you're entering through here, you can't really define this as an office or.
Isn't where we talked about.
No, we actually talked about the entrance, which is right, I don't know how to describe it. It's right underneath the label you have partition wall. Because there's a door
Right
right
here.
there.
Actually, no, the door that exists is underneath where you have toilet. It's almost across from the entry coming in on the porch. That's where that big door
Like
is.
across.
Well,
Yeah.
Next to the
there are two
chimney.
potential entrances.
Right,
on that
right.
side.
I like this, I like the east side. I don't have an issue with that. I think it actually would look better than having to go all the way around the building.
Yeah, the other part was the parking and the access to the road. So
But
when I,
do we know if are we allowed to use the parking next to Templeton?
this
Because,
isn't, this is on this side of
Do
the,
we
No,
know
I'm
what
saying-
property line
the
is?
property over here, like this building,
You
and then
can just
there's
drive
parking right next to the shed there.
right, it's on this side.
Yeah.
To
Do we
come
have access
through
to
that
that
way?
or no?
I think the property, when Rick and I were looking, the property line went through one of the other those buildings, so yes, we do.
You
I
can't, it
think
goes
this
right. right
looks
at
like
the
it's
edge
on
of
town
this.
property.
Showing you the, right there, showing you the property line.
Yeah, very hard to figure out from the town document.
Well, while we're talking about the ADA entrance and
Wait, can we,
Sorry, go back to the plan.
It's coming in here, and then, you know, there's parking here.
No, I understand.
Yeah, I know what you got that, but yeah. Could we go back that far? Potentially, could we? Yeah,
I mean, I guess my point is there's already parking there.
But it's not.
Right.
We have access to it.
Right, but you need dedicated ADA parking for the building, you can't rely on Templeton's parking for ADA. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, I just wondered because, I mean, I didn't know if that parking was like dedicated to the senior center.
it's Hamilton or, well, it's
Senior
Hamilton
center?
and Senior Center. Senior Center, the parking is in here, right next to Senior Center.
Yeah.
It's right in front here. This is all Templeton back here.
So the stuff that's across the driveway,
That's all Templeton. It
that's
goes
not, that
around.
has nothing to do with senior
No,
center?
that's all Templeton in here. When I checked out too, we were looking at parking, even parking over here with, you know, fire department, we have a lot of, could we get access to that and then walk across? Potential down the line, but when we looked at here, this is all Templeton related. parking.
So the
other
only,
part-
the only parking that they've
Right, right.
allocated for the senior center is like the two that are right next to it?
Yeah, so there's actually like 4, I think, but there's 2 handicap and then there's 2 extra. Yeah, it's terrible. That's why in actually talking to fire department, using the gravel and then walking across here. Potential. Yeah, be something we're gonna do down the line, but anyway, that's steep. That was one of the things that was steep. But anyway, we're here, you know, having it here and then right to here makes, because if you could use this, even wondered, you'd have to find a way to get walkway.
Yeah, but it's not, it's pretty level. It wouldn't,
Yeah, this
it
is-
wouldn't be much of a ramp at all, which is why I thought it was such a cool idea.
Yeah.
And it's not gonna change the way the building looks that much either.
I think,
This is gonna change the way the building looks a lot.
Well, what's gonna change?
Are you talking about the backside here, this door?
Yeah,
No, we were talking about the south side, aren't you?
well, I thought, no, I mean, I thought originally we were talking right where this cursor
That's
is.
where we were
We
originally.
were originally talking about that and then being able to come out from that the parking, the Templeton parking.
Or just from the parking between, just right there is what we'd always talked about when we were there. Well,
Well,
it depends
we're
on
talking
what this
about-
ramp looks like.
Yeah, well, we're talking about the exterior. I'm concerned that almost the entire currently attractive yard, and usable space,
Yeah.
surrounding the Swift House, would be converted to hard tub parking, which is much less attractive. And really defeats our effort to preserve the visual appearance of the building. It's something that we might talk to to Marina about when she's here. But I had had with the ADA people at the Department of Justice, Washington, many months ago, actually, a year or so ago at least. And they asked me a lot of questions about the building and its use and where it was located. Is it in town? Yes. Are there sidewalks to the building? Yes. Do you have a parking lot? No. And the opinion that was given to me, which, was then, and this is now, was that if the building was accessible by sidewalk or maintained, with pathways and curb cuts and so forth, that we didn't actually have to have an ADA parking spot. I think we'd like to do that because we'd like to be courteous to people with a need. But all the rest of the parking seems really more than anyone had imagined we would
Yeah.
have to do or want to do.
it's kind of,
It's
Yeah.
not regulated, so, I mean, to your point, it's not regulated because the property's owned by the town. It was more of a programmatic functional purpose with, providing parking for the programmatic use.
But we've had a lot of fairly large events there and no one's ever complained about parking
People are
accessibility.
used to walking to get to things in town.
Sure.
I think we just have the requisite number of handicap parking spaces. I
Yeah.
hate to see that yard
Yeah,
paved.
yes, we would all.
Well, if nothing
no,
else,
I'm not totally against it. You've got architectural landscape features on each corner. You've got the whole backyard that now is allowed. If you can put out, additional landscaping materials. You can have an outdoor area for functions outside as well. This is keeping with Swift Lane right next to another building, which is the old ambulance barn. Again, we cut that down, maybe, you could do that, but having some parking here and there was the gravel parking lot over here, which is used at times by people. But as we were just saying, in the Templeton and City, Cedar Hut, there's no parking. People, so when people come here to events during lunch hour, I know I end up parking here because there's no place to park anywhere. So if you're gonna have functions, people need to get there and they still get there, whether it's EV or, gas pump. They
We've
still.
done that for years and now they could park in the west side of the fire department where they park for the fire department events. They could park, by the playground and walk back. They mostly just walk on the sidewalks to get there,
But-
park on Main Street.
Right, and in since we did that, the last time we had a champagne stroll that used that building was 17, 18, 19?
I looked it up.
Since then, yeah. I don't remember since then, but
Yeah.
I still remember. But, since then, our town has gone crazy with parking all to the winter. I mean, there's not a parking spot to be had most nights on Main Street, not that it wouldn't be any function. And I agree with you, that's what we were just talking about. Sorry to go off on a little bit of tangent. Over here in the gravel lot, I'd like to get the town to be able to use more of that property, and also have access to Templeton as well. That would take this out. That's what I'm saying. I can see, I'm not wedded to having a lot here. I
Yeah.
actually like to have it, but have some access to it here. But still, I like the idea of leaving some opening here. There is some, landscape material behind the mobile station that allows us to be leafy. There's 2 trees back there, I believe, if I counted it right. That would make it for a nice little outdoor facility as well. Keep it here, obviously handicap, just over, and then see what we can do to utilize in conjunction with the fire department.
Do we have a right of way here because it is a town road
We
here?
do have a right of way. We have.
Is it enough that we could do some parking off?
It would be
Absolutely.
nice
That's
to
the whole
put
point.
parking on
There's,
the other
I think,
side.
3 trees that.
Because
are
that's where
here.
I always park.
Yeah,
exactly. But that's, we're talking fire department. They still own technically into this and they have an easement to here, but they're willing to look at potentially
Yeah,
putting, allowing parking and actually having it as a used for municipal parking area where people could use it during the day and walk across. Now with the crosswalk, with the flashing lights, they're going to come right across into the barns. It's a great place to actually park when people that way, right?
I'm just wondering if we could have parking here.
right.
Yeah, oh, yeah. And-
Right along the road.
On side, well, I don't,
I'm not
you're
talking,
talking about
I
on the side of the
understand
road.
the issues with the gravel parking lot.
You're talking about on
because-
the side of the road, like here.
Yeah.
On Swift Lane.
With the trees
Yeah,
out. I don't know
yeah.
if there's
But
enough.
people
Yeah,
park there
we can
now.
explore other possibilities, but it would be nice not to fill the yard with. hard-
Yeah, I think we could reduce the number that
Yeah.
is shown on this.
Yeah,
plan.
that's, again, it's a
Okay.
concept, but
Yeah,
getting back into the interior piece
Yeah.
and the ADA side. Yeah.
Dan, you had a question about ADA?
no, I asked it about whether,
It-
we
I was just
could-
gonna say, if there is something that you identified on the site and you wanted to mark up and send to us and identify areas that we could provide parking or parking that we can use, I could certainly take that into consideration as we move along with the project.
I would also like to understand, not that I think it's our phase 1, but I would like to understand how you are gonna, or how you're proposing to change the stairs going up to the 2nd floor, the main stairs there. Because they're so steep now, I can't imagine how you're doing that.
if you put a landing in and offset it, you can add more
They'd
stuff.
have to be rebuilt.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah, tear them out, rebuild them.
we had that in.
would
our
it, but it would essentially be in the same spot?
Yeah, it would be widened and if you're familiar with the landing on the 2nd floor, there's like a 2.5 foot weird landing
Yeah.
before you
just-
get up to the floor. Like I would just remove that and utilize that space as extra steps that we need.
Okay.
Yeah.
But even though it's so steep, you would be able to make it work in that same, basically that same space. It would have
Well,
to be
no, I
wider
had
instead.
I had to take up a little more square footage, like that would need to be looked at a little more extensively, especially structurally. But my initial thoughts is that it wouldn't impede on the structural elements. Yeah, I'd only need an extra foot or 2 to make them work as they go up into the 2nd floor. I mean, I'll have to study it further, but it was an initial concept thought.
Do we want to ask him to give us a quote on that particular thing, just so we understand? Because I mean, that's a huge issue for how to use the 2nd floor,
Oh,
is those
absolutely,
stairs.
absolutely.
When we worked on a plan, which was not technically supported, but we had anticipated that the stairway might be offset a little bit. Right now, it's directly over the basement stairway. And if you set it aside a little bit, you can have a couple more steps to a landing before you get to the stairs. And that would probably make it work too.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Tim, when you did your measurements as you came in that front entrance and to the stairs and then the storage area behind it, and I think going to the 2nd floor as well, your plan was again to to widen that stair and go up, and that would take into you go up to a better landing, right? And then you'd actually turn and your riser and your step rate would be appropriate to get up there. And that would cut into that bathroom, I guess, or the room that was at the top of the stairs, correct?
Yeah, there's a little.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm
so you'd be
demoing that wall.
actually cutting it a little bit.
Okay.
I think that's what I saw,
Yep.
falling down. You remember first, flip down that, but yeah, so because it needed to be wider, then that room there's enough room you could expand that and take it, and that would help. I think that was the turn, we were talking about standing up in the turn on the second floor. Of course, we'd leave that board across the top, so we'd have to step over that, right? That's cool, that's a feature I thought was amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, but that would allow you to, you know, to have the landing up there and then, you know, you're just reducing a little bit of that, of the room size at the top to the right.
Right.
Creating landing, okay.
I just think it might be helpful for us to know how
Yeah.
much that would cost.
If there's a cost associated with that, I agree, because it goes from what we said with the RFP, with the downstairs, ADA entrance, bathroom, kitchen.
Yeah, I have on the
Yeah,
conditions assessment on line item A16, I have an itemized cost estimate of between 20 and 25,000.
Okay,
Yeah. all right,
If we could get a variance or whatever to have the second restroom upstairs and not have to have gender-specific restrooms, which I don't know if that's gonna be possible. Our original thought had been to move the kitchen to where you have the second bathroom. The
Mhm.
kitchen as it is in the first floor plan is really, really minimal. And I think inadequate for a catering space. I mean, caterers would come in with prepared food, but it's so in the traffic plan and so exposed and so minimal in terms of space that really only, you know, it's fine to make coffee for a meeting, but
Sure.
you can't serve an event from that kitchen.
Yeah, if you plan to have events, we could dedicate a whole room to a kitchen.
Well, that's
This back
always,
end can be
yeah,
a whole kitchen and you can have access in and out of the building. with-
yeah. It's
with those kind of
been, you know,
functions.
it's always been a priority for any kind of upgrade is to improve the kitchen possibility.
He did expand the kitchen. If you look at his plans, the kitchen is expanded already in the plan.
Well, it took a little bit of the wall out, but it's,
But if you can only have 49 people, how big of a kitchen do you need?
well,
If you're laying out.
if you want more than 49 people.
Then you need 2 bathrooms.
Yeah,
So you have to decide which way you
Yeah.
want to go.
we're gonna have to decide on that.
Yep.
You know, if you're gonna try to limit it under 49 with 1 bathroom, then a big
I mean,
kitchen is
how
probably
do
a good
restaurants
point.
have bathrooms down the stairs or up the stairs? They're-
If they don't have they're not an assembly,
Yeah.
you know,
the-
unless
the
they
event
are,
space-
unless they have a banquet room, then they're assembly.
Right.
And
Hey,
It's-
hey,
it's
Tim, I
a
got a quick,
use- Sure.
I got a really quick question. So line A17, by far the largest item on this is the $400,000. Am I right? And reading that that's just an elevator?
Yeah, but I didn't include
It was
that
a-
in the estimate. I just wrote that as a line item, so
Yeah, I saw
that you guys
that.
can understand.
Yeah, you didn't put a ranking on it, but I just wanted to make sure that was just an elevator. Okay.
Right. It's not
It-
included in the overall.
And Tim, if we decided that the second floor should be residential, if we decided to keep it as an apartment, then we would not need to have an elevator there, right?
No, you don't.
I wanted to address that actually, the second floor. We hadn't, the task force and the board of selectmen hadn't really discussed the use of the second floor because we were looking to you for feedback on what would be involved if that were to be restored as an apartment space, either part or all of the second floor. And I think maybe there was a miscommunication there, but we wanted to know what additional code requirements would affect that and the relative cost of anything that would have to be done.
That wasn't actually in the RFP. It was the stairs.
In the usage.
Well, the usage,
Yeah.
but the RFP for their purposes of actually pulling this together for cost factors and so on. For the building itself it kind of ended with the stairs. We didn't get into the, moving it back into an apartment yet.
Well, what we were supposed to do was to provide information to them
Mhm.
about usage.
Right.
And then they would provide a plan that. fit
Within the
those
RFP.
uses.
Well, that-
Yeah,
it's-
but
yeah.
one of the potential uses, and this is something we certainly haven't decided upon by any means. There's a real need for affordable housing in the town of Kent. And I did talk to the head of the Kent Affordable Housing about whether they would be in any way interested in collaborating with us on this if the selectmen and the town decided to go in that direction with this house. And they, and he said that there are a number of ways that could be accomplished. But one of them is that if the town still owned the building and offered the space for affordable housing, that there are far fewer requirements as than normal affordable housing complexes for 1 or 2 apartments. And that there are state grants up to $100,000 that could help with any restoration of apartment space. There are benefits to having someone living full-time in a building. They can monitor the building systems and alert you if there are problems, and there's greater security if there's somebody in the building. And I don't know if we want to go in that direction or not, but we hadn't discussed it because we were hoping to get feedback from you about what different codes, whether fire code or building code, would be affected.
There's no fire code that's triggered, definitely not with the plan I have now. It's really about the egress and the access to the second floor.
So there are no fire code requirements if you have part residential and part other use?
Certainly not with the business use being on the first and second floor, but
First
I'll-
and second?
well, yeah, that's what it's designated on as the first floor right now. Our business assembly, yeah.
No, but if we were to use it for residential use.
I don't
if
think
that
so.
were-
I don't think it would trigger, but I'll get back to you on that.
Yeah, we'll
I'll
have
note
to
that.
explore it. It's David Stein. We'd have to explore the separation. It depends on the number of apartments and the designee of that, because there is a trigger point that requires residential to be fully sprinklered. So that's really the main
Yeah.
requirement. And then just the separation of fire alarm devices and means of egress. So yes, if you are contemplating a potential mixed use of that, then there may be some separation items that we would have to further explore. And we could do that. We could do that quickly and just do the comparison.
But did you say it would be required to be fully sprinklered?
Potentially, if there's more than,
It's possible. It depends on the number of units. So we'd need to look at the plan to see
I would
what
only
the-
anticipate that there would be one unit.
Well-
What if you only had one
yeah,
unit?
yeah.
Yeah, then most likely not, but what we would potentially need to do in lieu of that is create a fire rated ceiling to separate the floors. So that's the one thing we would have to just explore, what that wall separation would be for that one unit.
Our fire marshal was mentioning firewalls when we first started
Yeah,
talking.
and that's essentially what I'm talking about. It's,
Yeah.
in this
That is
case, it's a fire separation. Yes, correct.
Yeah.
I think that's why we backed off.
That doesn't necessarily mean bigger deal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, somebody knows me. Okay, how about, I think that's a good exchange for today. We've got a couple of things we need to get to, but I'd like to propose, you said maybe 3 weeks to come back. I'm looking at the week of April 8th, potentially. Could we come, would that work on your schedule, David? Yeah.
That works on my end.
You said April 8th?
The week of April 8th, yeah. We could look for the 8th again. That's a Monday if we wanted to try to do it again on a Monday. If you're around.
When April
April
8th?
8th, yeah, Monday. That's a 3 week, it takes 2 to 3 weeks, but the
Yeah.
Easter break and all that.
It's actually the 8th is not good for me. It's the only time that I have any plans between. If we could do it before that weekend. Thursday or Friday.
I'm going to Thursday or Friday available, and that's the coming up Easter week, so Easter Monday, and then third,
Yeah.
8th, 9th, 10th.
My sister's feeling it's her birthday and I got it
I'll bring it up, I'll go under. Well,
Um,
they have internet in Vermont down here. At least that's not what I was saying. No, I'd like to go.
If we do it later that following week,
The weekend, I just said the week of the 8th, I mean, if that's,
the week of the
the
8th.
week of the 8th. I said the 8th, we could, if we want to do it on Monday again, Monday was gonna be, but you're.
If we could do it later in the week.
Later in the week.
Eleven
fine.
months. So are you-
It's
you
late in the
guys-
day for me. It's still late in the day for me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so-
we'll accommodate your schedule. If you want to just let us know what day, we'll accommodate accordingly.
How about the 11th then, that Thursday?
That
Try
would be
that.
fine.
And,
Sure.
And ask me 5:15.
so, we do 4:30?
On the 10th or the 12th, I could do 4.
Um, 10th isn't good for you, you couldn't squeeze the 10th, that's a
It's a
Wednesday. Wednesday. We have anything that day that I know.
That's,
I've been dragged into some meeting at.
my sister is terminally ill
Oh, sorry.
and that is her
Okay,
birthday.
so why don't
Okay,
we
no,
not
no.
take up their time and
Yeah.
we'll figure out when.
All right.
Get back, and we'll let Joyce manage that for us.
The other thing that I wanted to ask about, the task force had a meeting last week, as Glenn mentioned. We're trying very hard to identify things that could be done within the budget that we have this year, funds for repairs and maintenance, that could help towards some of the priorities. And I wondered if, Tim, if you might be able to comment possibly if you're planning to come back here for anything anyway, so that you could work with us to try to identify what's reasonable to do within the context of the greater long-range plan.
I think we could address that at that meeting on the 8th, that week.
Well, my concern is the longer we wait, the less opportunity we have to line up contractors who are writing contracts
Well,
like crazy right now.
Correct, but yeah, there's that, I need to get my board finance too.
Yeah.
That's my concern for Wednesday,
Yeah.
is to get it through intact.
Yeah,
Without them-
I mean, we could make a recommendation to you after we have a priority list put
Oh, yeah, I'm
together.
hoping that, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, it wouldn't have to be a joint meeting. We could say these are the things we've identified and we think it would fit with the budget.
Yeah, it's showing the estimated budget, but yeah.
Yeah.
Not until actually it gets voted on in May.
Yeah, no, it has to go to.
No,
that to board.
You're talking about
This
using
year's
up
money?
this
I'm
year's
talking
budget.
about using this year's
Oh,
budget,
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, okay.
setting things
Oh, well,
up
yeah.
so that we don't miss out on contractors we'd like to work
Okay,
with.
sure.
Maybe you just gotta do it via email. And get his input.
Well, we can talk on the phone about it. But I.
Yeah, okay, this year I was talking about,
Yeah.
you were talking about next year.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about this.
Right
year's.
now, spend the money we have, got it, okay.
Spend the money we have while we have it.
Yeah, and where we can focus it, that's, I got it.
Small, right, that makes sense.
Yeah. We can do that, Tim, that would be,
Yeah, I think I could do that as part of like, realigning, reprioritizing, how we're approaching this, because currently, the way that we are looking at it, or we're looking at it, was like a full kind of restoration and preservation project. So this idea of like, repairing and fixing some things is a different approach. And if that's the approach you guys want to take, we can look at
Well,
that and
if-
outline it. But
If, for example, you look at the foundation and you think it needs additional pointing, we could do that. We could do painting where the paint is peeling. Once we try to figure out whether we have lead paint to deal with. Maybe we just use the money and identify, you know, whether we're dealing with lead paint or not. I don't know, but if you could help us within the context of the things you've identified and we have looked at too, then maybe we could put some things into use in this year's budget.
How much money we got left?
Well, I think we have, is it 10 or 15? I think it's 15,000.
It's around
Repairs and
there.
maintenance. But we could also potentially look at other categories within the Swift House budget that may be underutilized because the building is still closed. And transfer funds with approval of the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance. So there may be more money that's available.
There's not that much more in that budget.
Yeah,
That's pretty much it.
I don't know what's been utilized so far, so I'd like.
There's just not that much.
Yeah,
more
not
in
exactly.
the-
Okay, anyway, that's the objective. I don't want to lose the opportunity to do work that needs to be done anyway. And the fiscal year ends the end of June. So we're looking at a short term here.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you both. It's really helpful
Thank
to
you.
us to be able to understand the report better. It really was very helpful to be able to talk through with you.
You're welcome. We'll see you soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Thanks,
Thank you very
everyone.
much. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks a lot.
You're done. Thank you both for coming. We've all had meetings.
I'm glad you could make it large. I know it was short notice.
Okay, then we'll figure out our next meeting with the architect here. All right, next is Park and Rec budget, revised budget.
So I just want to first start off and say thank you to the Board of Selectmen for acknowledging the $2,000 that Park and Rec would request. We met as a commission and we all agreed that $2,000 is a great addition for part-time staff. We definitely see a great lot of utilization of $2,000 when it comes to having the rec aides being able to assist in other duties that are assigned to them, such as assisting with taking minutes if they need, if they can assist with helping create those minutes and having them revised by myself, assisting with program development and engaging with events. And then in addition to that, we met as a commission, and in that conversation, we recognized that we want to increase the number of attendees at Camp Kent. And we're looking at increasing hours as well. So we wanted to go beyond that $2,000 and just request that we modify the part-time line item to $41,116 in order to reflect some additional pay for the staff that would be working at Camp Kent. We're looking at expanding hours to 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. since there has been a shown need from parents that they would like this. We're also exploring the option of lengthening the amount of weeks that we have for Camp Kent from 6 weeks to 8 weeks, along with Club Getaway. So this opportunity would really assist us with boosting and boasting that program and then taking some new families that have reached out. I've had approximately 6 families reach out to me with 1 to 2 kids each. So right there, that goes to show we're already going beyond our maximum of what we can have. And we're looking to increase the number of people that we have, or a number of staff, so we can make a good ratio of 1 counselor to 12 kids. And if we can go up to 36, that'd be a great number for us to have. That Camp Kent would be able to help, 36 kids do something new this summer. We'd be able to help families have somewhere for their kids to go during the summer so they're not engaged in other things. They're engaged with making friends. They're engaged in a way to learn something new at the camp, whether it's zip lining, rock climbing, swimming, and beyond. So, and making new friends. It's a big thing with camp. Make new friends and learn some life skills.
So Matt, what was the time before, if you're changing it to 8 to 4, what was it prior?
Prior to that, it was 9 to 3. So Camp Kent ran from 9 AM to 3 PM with a 9 AM drop off and a 3 PM hard pickup. We would have an 8 AM drop off with a 4 PM hard pickup. When speaking with Camp Kent, speaking with Club Getaway, Camp Kent did not interfere with anything on their property during those times, and us expanding our times, the only thing that there would be a change with is Club Getaway assigns us a counselor in order to bring us to their activities such as zip lining, rock climbing, waterfront, and so on. From 8 AM to 9 AM, and then from 2 PM to 4 PM, we would be responsible for our own activities. So we would have our counselors and our camp director lead activities for the kids, whether it be something like Gaga, which is a dodgeball style game, whether it be arts and crafts or something along those lines in order to do stuff that we already have here, and the skill set that we already have, and activities that could be led by a counselor, and give the staff a chance to lead as well and be creative. So we're able to work with Camp Kent and use their property, and we wouldn't have to adjust any sort of fee that we do pay Camp Kent annually or weekly rather for their kids based on an annual sum. So they have it's $75 a child on our end to pay for Camp Kent, and even if we're increasing hours, they don't have an increase for that number for the kids. So it'd be $75 flat per child from our end.
So it wouldn't really be an early drop off. It's just camp starts earlier, ends later.
Correct. Camp would start earlier and later, which would be
For
fantastic.
every kid that comes.
Yep.
And all the numbers are correct.
So that's just the line item for the salaries. We did not do anything with the pensions or anything beyond the salary range.
Because it's all part-time.
It's all part-time. Yep. So we just left it, so that would have to be on Barbara's end, but as a commission, we did approve the line item for that number, for the salaries.
Salaries for the hourly.
Maybe that number again.
It was $41,116.
So Matt, I don't mean to be a pain in the butt, but then the sheet that you gave us, it seemed to be by 6 weeks, not 8 weeks, the math.
So looking at the sheet, it should be, thank you. So look. And so it should be $16 an hour for the,
Let's say 30 days.
it says 30 days, so just give me one moment to recalculate the number. That might have been an error in translation for the equation onto the sheet, so just give me one moment. Let me double check that number because I don't believe it should say 30 days. So this would be at 40 days.
What's the date? Is the math right?
That is, yeah, that doesn't seem right. Why is that? That says 11. I apologize, that does not look right. Why does that not look right?
I don't know when it actually starts.
Yeah, the math looks right for 3 staff at 30 days, 8 hours and $16 an hour.
But are you doing 30 days or are you doing 40?
So we discussed with the commission the potential of 40 days, but if right now this is stating that it's 30 days, we would have to go with 30 days, so that'd be 6 weeks, but we'd be expanding the number of hours that we're operating with.
But it still stay at 6 weeks.
Yep, so we would have to keep it at 6 weeks based on this number and what the commission approved. So we would just slate it to.
When are you proposing that would start and end, the 6 weeks?
I'm sorry?
What dates are you proposing that it start and end?
The dates aren't solidified just yet. We're meeting with the commission tonight to discuss that. The dates are based on Camp Kent's availability, so we would have to start the week before the 4th of July. They're not available the week of the 4th of July, and then I can't remember off the top of my head, but there is a week in August that we would not be able to have camp because they have their property rented at the moment to a corporation. Therefore, we cannot set foot on the property during that time.
Traditionally, it's the end of June.
Okay. So we need to actually. The only change would be, right, health insurance and pension is part-time and not, it's social
Just a
security.
part-time employee line.
No social security change.
We didn't adjust we only just adjusted the gross pay for the salary.
We would need to adjust the social security because we are paying that.
Yeah, that would have to be adjusted by Barbara.
Okay. So.
Did you speak to Barbara about this?
I mentioned it to Barbara, so she has some understanding as to what we're discussing. I spoke to her on Friday.
I'm willing to take the lead on social security and update that. Anybody vote on the hours with the appropriate social security adjustments for the increased hours. And then get that tomorrow, and then we'll submit that to the Board of Finance, so they have that at least a day. It's a minimum amount, but Glenn, what do you think?
Did you hear what we were saying?
Do we mumble enough?
I heard a little bit. Could you repeat that again? Summarize?
Yeah, well, we said that in, the hourly employee line is correct. It's for 30 hours, not 40. And so it'd be a 6-week, not an 8-week program at this point. And we would have to get a social security adjustment because we don't have that number correct on this
Okay.
one. But we can vote on it with the hourly number being correct. And then with the adjustment made for social security, we can vote on that. And then we'll get Barbara to do that tomorrow, then we'll submit that to the board as approved with the hourly adjustment for the social security. I mean, it's a fixed rate. It's not, if we agree on the hours, then the social security has to go along with that. We
Okay.
can't, we have to, that's a mandate, so. We can, okay.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we increase the line item 325 for hourly employees to 41,116, and that an adjustment will be made to the social security line, which is line 328.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion more on that? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we'll make that adjustment to the Board of Finance on Wednesday as well, and we'll get that done. So, thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Thank you. The last thing we have that we have right now is the legal update. Background, planning and zoning, land use, had a lawsuit with High Watch regarding the greenhouse and the use of the greenhouse and so on, based on the zoning for that property. We, with the town of Kent Planning and Zoning, won the first lawsuit on that. High Watch go back to the Court of Appeals. They reversed it and found for High Watch to allow them to do it. The planning and zoning and land use then applied to the Supreme Court to actually ask for a review and to redo that. Within just last week, they got the approval, which was a lot quicker than they thought, to have it vacated. The appeal for High Watch to be able to use it is vacated. They have to go back now and relitigate it. So there's going to be an increase to the cost of that. I did talk to them briefly today. Ty, unfortunately, is at a funeral today, but they estimated it's about $15,000. And that's the estimate. You know, you never know exactly how it's going to go, but it's about $15,000 additional to the planning and zoning line. Pull that line up.
218.
Yeah, 280, yeah, right. It's I think 5,000 at this point. Yeah. Right. So we made the adjustment right to legal P and Z from 5,000 to 20,000, increasing that. We're in for a penny in for a pound on this one. So it's the estimate. It could be more, it could be a little less. You know how lawyers are. I think we have litigation, I should say, not lawyers. It's a litigation aspect of it. So, you know, if we're interested in going for that, and you see the note from Kai in there. I'm sorry.
Nice.
Yeah, just said, we got the Supreme Court has it reviewed and allowed it to go back, so. Supreme Court granted the petition for certification, meaning sending it back for review.
And has the planning and zoning actually voted on? Do they vote on going to the Supreme Court, or?
Yes, they
just?
did. They voted to pursue it. Yes, they did. They did. Yeah. When the new group came in after the election, they reviewed what had been requested, you know, what the planning and zoning had done before with Matt. They under West, they unanimously agreed to continue with the litigation and submitted it. I thought it would be like 2, 3, 4 months. It actually was like 6 weeks, a lot quicker. When the Supreme Court agreed to review it, reviewed it and sent it back. So now it's up to us to, you know, get litigated. So they need that funding to go ahead and forward to litigate. So,
I mean, I don't think there's any way we can go against what the zoning
no,
commission
but
wants.
it's just amount.
I don't love this, but.
Yeah, I know. Well, yeah, and I did talk to the folks at Highwatch that are concerned, but they understand this is a larger issue with planning and zoning for this building that was not on the property to begin with, changing use and so on, and it has other implications across the town. They've had another issue with that over Birdie property there before. So this is kind of so a continuation, and then there's another one that they have in their previous planning and zoning rules that they feel it's important to continue this to. They don't want to change their plans or the zoning, excuse me, to do this. So, and they had a pretty good, I did read the, nothing else to do on vacation. I read the lawsuit that the lawyer Ziska submitted to the Supreme Court. It was pretty straightforward. I liked it. I mean, I even understood it. So anyway, all right, so I'll make a motion then. We agree to increase line 218 of the budget from 5,000 to 15,000 for P&Z litigation.
Second.
Oh, okay. All right. Any more discussion? All in favor? Aye. Discussion? Rather not. So, you know. No, that goes. Okay, there's that. Everything else on budget, Wednesday. Planning and zoning, or excuse me, Board of Finance will get our presentation budget. We'll write some comments. I'll share them by tomorrow. My generally written comments to the board of finance. And we're going to sit down with Barbara and Joyce and House of Town and form out how we'll present this and then give you guys a chance to chop on it a little bit.
And I know this is like the greater umbrella of budget, but did you get a letter from Nancy O'Day Wyrick about the capital?
Yes, I got an email basically when I was on vacation saying
Yeah.
in April that they wanted some presentation. So they gave us, I said, right now, we're pulling it together, but it will have.
Yeah, can we just see that, what exactly they're asking for? Because I was at the meeting, but I'd love to see.
Yeah, I'll dig the email up to Nancy, said it all, you guys can share your thoughts. He just basically said that meeting, we want it done in April, we can have you give the presentation on.
But have you guys reached out yet? Have you reached out to all the different departments and said?
Yes, Public Works,
Okay.
yeah.
Yep. I sent an email last week.
That's right.
Asking the department heads to prepare a narrative based on Nancy's
Does
emails.
it impact the fire department as well? Because they're in the capital plan?
Yeah. It does.
I don't think they have anything out for that. I don't think money.
They
haven't.
They haven't spent, there's a truck they haven't spent.
That's in the budget tab. That's beyond, is it? I don't think.
But they want everything from 2020, wasn't that the letter? Isn't that what the email said?
Remember saying that, I thought it was,
I'll have to look.
I think the fire department might need to.
Yeah, I think the fire department, I had to mention it to John Russell when it first came out. When I met with him that one night about, just general things and he understood, but.
The other thing is, Glenn, we had some emails back and forth today about trying to meet about the cemetery committee.
Right.
Would you be available on Thursday at 5:15?
This
Really?
Thursday?
Yeah, sorry to keep cutting into your vacation.
What vacation? Sure, as long as I can zoom in, it seems I can. I've got some Wi-Fi. So 5:15 on Thursday, I can do that.
Right. What we're gonna do is we have, I think, 6 people for the cemetery committee right now.
We actually have 7.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You got the shared folders, right?
Yeah, I did. Thank you so much.
Right, we got that. And then what we'll do is we're gonna do that, and then I think Bernadette has, said yes, she'd help out. The plan was, talking to her quickly is like, would she be willing to sit on with us and the Board of Selectmen to review the sexton and with her experience based on as a treasurer and so on, working with that. That she said yes, she would help.
She was a secretary.
She was secretary, she's treasurer, I think she did a couple of things. So you can have them to become, chief cook and bottle washer. But she'd help us out. And so what we'll do is, and as soon as we get done with approving of the committee members, then we'll invite her into that, and we'll have the number of applicants for Sexton to review. We can review together at that point, and then like we did with, I can figure out when we want to have interviews and set that up and get that done, so we have someone in place as quicker, as close to the first as we can. Couple people are that too, but we'll get them in and interview them.
Thursday, 5:15. I can do that.
Yeah, and that's all, we'll just set the dates for it, review quickly, and then, you know, any issues, we have anybody applying for the Sexton position with Bernadette, if there's an issue, we'll address that. If not, we'll just go ahead, you guys will let us know. We'll hope to just set up meetings, and Joyce and I'll work on setting up interview dates.
But will we appoint the cemetery committee members on Thursday? Is that the idea?
That's
Okay,
correct, yeah.
all right. Just want to make sure I
Yeah, we'll
understood.
do that
Okay.
first. And
Yeah,
then-
okay.
And then when Bernadette goes on, then we bring her in to help as representative of the committee, helping us on the
Okay.
selection for the Sexton.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
That makes total
Makes
sense.
sense? Makes sense?
Yes,
Great.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes
All right,
sense.
cool. All right, good. Other than that, anything else? Budget-wise, Meredith? Yeah.
That's all I got.
All right, love the sunshine.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, then.
Go enjoy your vacation, Glenn. Sorry we interrupted.
Okay, it's all good.
I missed the one, I wanted to go to one housing, affordable housing thing on Monday, and Mexico, where we were, doesn't go to daylight savings, so I was off, a whole bit, an hour. Plugging in and like, it's all over. I'm like, oh, okay. All right, back to the beach. But anyway, all right, motion adjourned.
So moved.
So moved.
5:41.
All right, all in favor? Yeah.
Aye.
Adjourned. Thank you. All right.
Bye-bye.
Have a great Thursday.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Glenn. Where are you anyway, by the way? Anywhere good?
New Hampshire, Lake Winnipesaukee, Lakes region.
Nice.
Good times. Sunny New Hampshire.
Yeah, there you go. The guy I talked to, thanks. The guy